Welcome back guys, this is Yix here at REKT Crypto and welcome back to another video. So in today's video, I want to talk about the halving a little bit more. Now the halving has happened. What should we expect next? And I'm going to look at the article that I used in my previous video and kind of delve into just the post-halving part a little bit more. So again, we kind of know what to expect, what are the next milestones that are going to come up going forward in the next year or two. So let's look at the key takeaways after comparing both halvings. So again, please look at this article, it's absolutely fantastic. He really goes into a lot of detail comparing the previous two halvings and using that as a template to look at the halving that just occurred now and what to expect, give or take. So the halving's effect obviously is a key catalyst to beginning another cycle or another bull market. And it's rallied between 12 to 13,000% in each of the last halvings. And in the first one, it rallied 13,000% and the second 12,000 and a bit. But a big difference between the two halvings is one took longer to get to the new all-time high than the other. So as I said, it took Bitcoin twice as long to get to the next all-time high for the second halving. So about 1,000 days compared to 500 for the first halving. So let's look at what to expect for what's going to happen now. We've gone past the third halving, and let's look at what next milestones we are probably going to encounter. So this has already happened. We rallied 340% since the bottom at around 3,100 all the way up to almost 14,000. And as he said, this is looking most similar to Bitcoin's second halving. And as you can see, 544 days before its second halving, and it rallied 383% after that. But we did not get to that level, we got to 340%, a little bit less than the second halving. So this is the second halving that occurred. And as you can see, it rallied 383% and then retraced before or during the halving 38%. So if you look at what's happened in the current halving, so we rallied about 320% or 30%, and then the retracement was from the top. The retracement was 70%. So almost double the retracement in the second halving. So obviously it's not going to be like for like, but this is the difference so far. So he's looked at all the halvings. So after looking at both the halvings, he started to look at the key tendencies that seem to occur in both of them, and these are basically checkpoints that we can kind of look at going forward. So most of the exponential growth is after halving, good. So we can expect all the growth to happen now. Unfortunately, the best time to enter is obviously at the bottom. We have missed the bottom, which was over here, 3,100, and this is where the smart money, as they say, would have entered. But still, it's still a good time to get in. As it said, most of the growth happens after the halving, so we've still got a lot of room to grow. As you can see from the bottom, the pre-halving bottom, or the retracement, from that point, we still had 4,000% growth. So if we use this as the bottom, which is looking like the bottom, and let's say it did go 4,000%, you're still looking at around 160 odd thousand per Bitcoin, which is 40 times your investment. So still astronomical gains. Another key tendency, if Bitcoin rallies less pre-halving, then it will rally more post-halving. So as it mentioned, Bitcoin rallied 660% pre-halving 1 and later rallied 3,400% after the halving. And prior to the second halving, it was a lot less, almost half, 383%, to reach its pre-halving top, and that was 4,000% after the halving. So it rallied about 340% to get to this top. So if we're going by this tendency, then we're going to have a much larger gain after the halving, which is good. The retrace happened very early on for this current halving compared to the second halving, where the retrace happened just before the halving and then continued 22 days after the halving. So everything is happening slightly earlier than in the second halving. So it mentions from the first halving, when it retraced 50%, it rallied 3,400%, compared to the second halving, which retraced 38% and then rallied 4,000%. So let's just have a quick look at, so we had the retrace up to this point, and let's estimate if the run up was 3,400%, we would have a Bitcoin price of around 140,000, and the second halving was a run up of 4,000% post halving from the pre-halving bottom. So if that was the case, it would be 160. So that, even as a kind of price prediction, 140 to 160,000 is astronomical for any investment, and it's definitely a once in a lifetime opportunity. So this very important key tendency 5 is that the pre-halving top prior to the shakeout retrace has historically been Bitcoin's highest pre-halving price point, but is not high enough to beat the all-time high. And it also mentions that the price point is approximately 33% below the all-time high to 51% below the all-time high. And that is again been exactly the same case with the current halving of around, it was just shy of 30%. So another key tendency, which is 100% correct. So it was just below that. And a new all-time high in Bitcoin's price has always occurred many months after the halving. And obviously that's the case so far. It's definitely, if it's gonna occur, which is likely, it's gonna happen after this point. So to sum it all up very nicely by this article, as mentioned previously, what you can kind of deduce from the halvings so far, or the effect the halving has on the price, is that it rallies 12 to 13,000%, and that's how it's been in the last two halvings. So that's what we could expect, give or take, in the next one. So you can kind of expect roughly potential price of about 385,000% per Bitcoin. And the way you would calculate that is if you go to from the bottom of around 3,100, this is 12,000%. And if you'd go to 13,300, you'd have a price of just over 400%. If we are to go by the last two halvings, that's potential price point that Bitcoin could reach. So just revisiting some information about the second halving, because it's looking very similar to the second halving so far, you know, we kind of use that as a timescale of how long it could take for us to reach the next all-time high. And as you can see, post-halving, it took about 518 days to get back to get to new all-time highs, or the peak of the next bull run. And you know, it's much less likely, but it took about 133 days post first halving to get to the new all-time high. So if we just use that as a time predictor or time estimate, so if we go by the first halving, we could reach the next all-time high by basically the end of this year. Now that is looking very, very unlikely, because the amount of money that would have to go into the market for that to happen is such a short space of time, would be absolutely unprecedented. And especially if you combine that with the state of the economy right now, that's just completely unlikely. But the second halving, which took about 518 days, the second all-time high that was reached post second halving took about 518 days. So that's, you're looking at basically the fourth quarter of 2021, going to the beginning of 2022. And that's looking much more likely. So basically we've got, you know, about a year and a half until that point. And that seems like a much more likely estimate, or a much likely turn of events. If you look at, if you compare it to traditional investments, a year and a half to get to that kind of a price gain, again, as I've said in the video, absolutely unprecedented. So although, you know, for millennials or even, you know, Gen X's or Z's, a year and a half might be a very long time. But in the world of investment, a year and a half it's a blink of an eye. You know, some people have to wait 10 years to realize, you know, even any remote kind of positive returns. So a year and a half to potentially get 3,000 to 4,000% gains, you know, I'll be very happy with that. And that's how I want to end the video. So, you know, mark that in your calendar. Basically 2021 Q4, you know, things could get very heated in that time. And if, you know, history does repeat itself, then that would be the point as to which you want to start selling your position, and definitely at the point where you want to become part of the hype. So you still have time to get invested. You still have time to benefit from the potential 3,000 to 4,000% price gains, but the closer we get to that point, the less time you have, and the more dangerous it becomes that you will lose money instead of making money. So that's where I want to end this video. I hope you got some value from that. Please read the full article. It's absolutely fantastic, very well detailed, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.